Is the hope from the Cuomo folks that while 14% of people say in a poll that they would vote for Sliwa, that when they actually get in there and they actually have to make a decision for who their next mayor is going to be, that a much bigger percentage of those 14% will actually end up voting for Cuomo?
That's exactly right. That is Cuomo's path to victory, and he has been clear about that for months now.
Jeff Coltin is a reporter for Politico. He co-authors the New York Playbook, which I check out on a daily basis. Jeff, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Glad you gave me a little extra time to look at the Quinnipiac poll. There's
I
a
was just
lot
gonna-
interesting stuff there.
I was just going to say there is a new poll that just came out in the last, 15 minutes. Take us through, I assume you have it in front of you, right? Take us through what this latest, and Quinnipiac is, unlike the other poll I mentioned about Stefanik and Kathy Hochul, this one is considered a very credible, reputable polling agency. So tell us what we've learned from this.
Absolutely. Independent poll, one of our go-tos. I will give a caveat. In this race, we have to note all the polls missed the primary. Nobody predicted a Mamdani 13-point victory. So I keep reminding as I read every poll and I report every poll and I get interested in these, I remind myself that the polls really missed the primary. They did not catch that Mamdani surge at the end. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt. That said, general election, we actually expect them to poll better. They know the demographics a little better. They can expect it. So that said, Mamdani up 10, still up 10 points, 43 Mamdani, 33 Cuomo, Sliwa, Republican nominee Sliwa down in 14. So a 10-point difference. Just a couple weeks ago, the last Quinnipiac poll, it was 46-33. It was a 13-point difference. Mamdani leading Cuomo by 13. Now that's down to 10. That suggests movement, but I find it pretty interesting that Cuomo is the same. Cuomo is 33-33 across those weeks. It's Mamdani that's gone down 3 points. So I guess the hits on Mamdani seem to be moving some voters away from him, but maybe they're moving to undecided or what. Cuomo is not gaining.
Right. There's another poll, though, right, where Cuomo was down by 20, where he's also down by 10, correct?
That's right. That's right. And yes, we should be looking at the wider universe of polls. There is some significant difference. There's been a couple polls that show a 10-point difference. There was a recent poll that showed something like a 23-point difference. All of them have Mamdani up at least 10 points. So everybody agrees that Mamdani has a comfortable lead. But yeah, there is some differentiation there. And when you look at all the polls, it generally does show over the past month, especially, Cuomo closing that gap somewhat. There seems to have been some movement away from Sliwa, away from Eric Adams, who dropped out of the race, and towards Cuomo. That said, again, still you wouldn't call it a close race. It's still with Mamdani, with every poll showing a comfortable lead.
Talking to Jeff Coltin from Politico, co-authors the New York Playbook. Is the hope from the Cuomo folks that while 14% of people say in a poll that they would vote for Sliwa, that when they actually get in there and they actually have to make a decision for who their next mayor is going to be, that a much bigger percentage of those 14% will actually end up voting for Cuomo?
That's exactly right. That is Cuomo's path to victory. And he has been clear about that for months now, that he thinks this is going to become a two-person race by hook or by crook, even if Curtis Sliwa not even if, he's obviously staying in the race. Right. People are already voting. Yep. Election day is next week. But he is hoping that Curtis effectively falls out of the race because voters see this as a two-person contest. It's either Mamdani or not Mamdani. And the not Mamdani votes could go to Cuomo. We've actually seen a number of high-profile Republicans just in the past few days say, I am voting for Cuomo. A lot of them, it's very pained endorsements. It's saying, I hated the guy. I've never thought I would be doing this, but it's important enough to me. It's important enough to their politics that we do not vote for Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani. So that's been an interesting dynamic over the past few days. There has been even further consolidation away from Sliwa towards Cuomo. We'll see if the voters follow. That's certainly the elites of the party are going that way. Time will tell. Sliwa's still in this poll 14%.
This is kind of a technical question, but when you look at the ballot in New York, right, because Cuomo isn't a Republican or a Democrat, he ends up kind of getting buried at the bottom, right? You have Mamdani has his name twice at the top. You have Sliwa at the top. And then you got to kind of go look for Cuomo in the middle there. Is there concern that that could have an impact?
There is, yeah. The Cuomo campaign has been putting out mailers and ads. They've been hammering it hard to literally show voters this is where you find Cuomo. Mamdani, yes, as the Democratic nominee, is in the obvious position, like right there, top left, Mamdani. And then Cuomo, you got to go like over, five candidates to the right and down one. And that's where you find his name. So yeah, that could have an impact.
Now, let's assume Mamdani wins, which he almost certainly will. I do think that the support for him is going to hurt Governor Kathy Hochul when she runs for governor, and there's still going to be a primary, et cetera. I don't know that's going to hurt her in the primary as much as it would in a general election. What do you make of this latest poll that indicates that Elise Stefanik is 1 point up over Kathy Hochul?
I think right now, Hochul is making that primary play. She is trying to make peace within the Democratic Party by aligning with Mamdani and just kind of focused on getting through the legislative session, which is in the first half of the year. Look, she's obviously thinking about November 2026 and her reelection race, but I think that that's secondary to her thinking about, uniting the Democratic Party here. And also, I should add, she does not like Andrew Cuomo on a personal level. They used to work together. They
Right.
don't like each other. They had a falling out over his resignation and everything around that. So this is partially, for her, it's an endorsement of Mamdani. It's about Democratic Party unity. It's about him having the momentum and her wanting to jump on that train. It's also about personal dislike for Andrew Cuomo.
And I guess it'll depend on how radical Mamdani becomes once he is mayor as to how much that will impact Kathy Hochul, because I've said many times that I believe that Mamdani is going to be a great stalking horse for the GOP nationally. They're going to make him out to be the Democratic Party, which is why, I was shocked when I heard initially that Trump is going to convince Curtis Sliwa to get out and this and that. I was like, why would he want him to get out? He's going to be able to use him as as a punching bag for years.
We're already seeing that. There's some local races on Long Island where there are mailers going out tying the Democratic district attorney candidate to Zoran Mamdani. There's no actual ties between them. It's literally just they're both Democrats, but that's enough. So yes, they're tying Long Island candidates. I saw a yard sign in Westchester County that was tying the Democratic county executive to Mamdani. Again, no connections, no actual endorsements, but they're Democrats, and that's enough, and that's a fair hit. So I do expect that to go national in 2026.
Take your calls at 866-967-6887. There was an article today in the New York Post that Mamdani, they describe it as hit with true criminal referrals. I don't know really what that means. It means that this campaign finance watchdog basically just said, we think that you guys should investigate this. But the allegation was with regard to Mamdani accepting illegal contributions from foreign donors. The Coolidge Reagan Foundation filed the referrals alleging he may have violated federal election campaign laws by taking contributions that the Post reported on of nearly $13,000 from at least 170 donors with addresses outside the U.S., including one from his mother-in-law in Dubai. How big a deal?
Now, normally, I would say this is not a big deal. I've reported on this. I followed up on the reporting. I looked into these foreign donations. And to me, it seemed like there's no there there. First of all, most of these donations from foreign addresses are actually from American citizens who happen to be living abroad. And under New York City law, that's legal. They are totally fine to donate. So immediately,
That's
cross out
most.
like
All right. So let's get
most.
rid of
Yeah.
them. Let's get rid of the
Yeah. So there
majority of
are,
them, the most of them. All right. So what about the rest of them?
that's right. Some of them do appear to be donations from uh, foreign, uh, from citizens of other countries, which, yes, would be illegal under New York City. The campaign has already returned some of those, and their response, their answer is basically like, look, we accept donations online. This isn't people handing us checks that we vet before we cash the check. No, this is just people putting in money online, and then it shows up in our system. And so they're basically saying, look, yeah, we're vetting, we're clearing these out, and when we find a donation that's illegal, we're returning it. And frankly, I buy that explanation. And I will also note that among the donations, um, I was looking into these. I would have been concerned if there were some real clear patterns, if there were a bunch of donations from the same address or the same area. To me, they really seemed all over the place. And my guess, my assumption here is that these are people from across the world who saw this social media powered campaign and were excited and then clicked to donate, even though they legally couldn't donate, and they
Right.
probably didn't realize that. So that's my read of the situation. And I will add, so I don't think there's any there. However, as we've seen with the Trump Department of Justice, there is an interest in finding what might seem to be to other people very small issues, such as mortgage fraud with Letitia James, and prosecuting that. And so I can't completely discount this investigation. I'm not a prosecutor. There might be something here. It seems small to me, but there might be something here. And if so, it is possible, given this precedent, that the Trump administration would try and pursue it. So it is relevant, and it is something that has to be considered.
All right. Before we take a break here, the insiders, do they believe that Cuomo has any shot? I mean, what percentage chance, if you were to ask 10 of the biggest New York insiders, I'm sure you talk to these people all the time, these politicos who are involved inside New York City politics, what percent chance would you say that they think Cuomo has of winning?
Maybe 5%, maybe
That's it.
10%. I might be getting moved by those online betting markets that show it about around there. But no, I mean, you talk to even big Cuomo fans, say, look, I get this is a long shot. I know it probably won't happen. Mamdani's probably going to win, but we have to try. Like, it's always couched in that. There's little optimism given the polling and Mamdani's momentum.